Hi, welcome to Raj and also welcome to the video series on understanding the job description while applying for any jobs. In today's video, I have taken a job title for Scrum Master. As you all know, nowadays, importance of Scrum Masters to manage agile teams is essentially important in order to make them understand the real values and principles of agile. Followed by this, whatever the task they have taken, a Scrum Master must ensure the team to complete the task with all the required deliverables within the specific timelines by implementing short iterations on that. So, based on my observation, as far as my consulting and coaching experience, I have come across a lot of people whoever has applied for Scrum Master. These days, even the observation what I had is that people some coming from non-IT, even IT, right? So both people are applying for Scrum Masters. Because a person coming from IT background, maybe they may be from development background, or they may be from testing, coding or testing background, or any other technical background. Understanding about the jargons, terminologies, the kind of technologies or frameworks and all everything will be known and well versed with them. This is in connect to the people who are coming from the technical side. But major challenge nowadays, what I understood when I'm interacting with people is the person coming from non-IT, the person who is not at all belongs to IT. People were in different professional experiences in their respective fields, maybe from HR, maybe from finance and operations, all that stuff in that domains, even sales and all that. So these people were also planning to become Scrum Masters, which is a welcoming thing. I accept and honor it. But if you understand the core elements from the Scrum Master's point of view, I would always advise to have some knowledge over the technicalities also. Scrum Master, from the technical perspective, I advise people to understand, because when you are working on the field of agile environment, of course, agile is an environment by methodology on its own. When we are implementing, when we are managing teams, most of the people have some conception over, I don't say it is a misconception, but a conception over that. This is all something how team management skills and all that. So this is what usually their conception is. To an extent possible, it is right. But practically speaking, whenever we start working, end of the day, we need to deal with technical team. So we have to interact with technical people. We need to discuss about the kind of tasks what they have taken, why are they not completing. So what are the impediments a Scrum team has to understand and to solve their queries and all everything is essentially required being a Scrum Master. We will be fortunate enough if the team is so good in all the ways, then Scrum Master role was very limited. But usually we don't see the situation all the time. So sometimes there are some uh, professional inexperience may happen for some people who are in agile teams. They may not have well experienced on so and so skill sets, XYZ. So this is where generally the problem comes, right? So Scrum Master, I would advise person, of course, based on my interaction I had with people, I might be wrong to some extent, but uh, as far as my understanding itself is concerned, my observation and as well as suggestion is right. Scrum Masters having knowledge over the technicalities and technical skill sets, imparting some technical knowledge is also essentially important in order to sustain yourself into the industry for a long time and to excel your career to the next level. So after Scrum Master, if you want to become something relating to Agile coach, because as you see, I am an Agile coach now, where I was a Scrum Master at one point in time. Now I am an Agile coach. So this is where generally requires, because technical knowledge, if you have, it's more advantage for a person to understand much better. That's what all I can say. So in that context, whatever the job title I have taken in reference to the Scrum Master, either from the technical perspective or a Scrum Master perspective, whatever the skill sets are required of a person whenever they are applying for job opportunities, or when they're preparing some resume of their own, because based on the skill sets and as well as key skills whatever we have mentioned, based on that recruiters will identify us and they will invite you to attend for an interview. Right? This is how usually happens in any recruitment process. So first of all, there are two things. One is how you have to prepare your resume and how you have to transform your skill set into that. That is point number one. And second point is that how you need to understand the job description before you're applying for any jobs, and how you have to understand the real requirement, whether are we suitable enough or not, so that whenever you're applying, you have a chances that you'll be invited for an interview in the beginning. Of course, end of the day, that is all our potentiality is required. So we have to go through and we have to get it succeeded. Anyway, that is needed. But end of the day, these are the two major things which are essentially needed, because how you need to prepare your CV as a Scrum Master if you are coming from IT background or not, or from a non-IT background, how you have to present yourself. At the same time, not only that, and how you need to understand the job description for any of the job profiles. So job description, whatever the people have given, especially on the job portals, all that varies, depends on the experience, what they were expecting. The reason why whatever the skill sets required for a Scrum Master was divided by me into three different things. This is all for you to better understanding that there is no basic skill set or intermediate or advanced level skill set. This is all because as I'm making video, it is always better to make it in a more detailed way. That's the reason why I have made it as basic skill set, intermediate, followed by the advanced skill sets. Right? This is how generally I have categorized. Let's get into the first basic skill set, being a Scrum Master whenever you are applying. The very first thing is that we must have a knowledge over the agile values and principles, because agile is an environment or a way of approach of managing a task. Either it could be an individual task when we are working on the organization, or it may be an IT project, whatever it is. So understanding the way of approach followed by agile values and principles and all everything are essentially required. So knowledge over agile values and principles are needed. Apart from that, in the field of agile, some projects or some projects or the works will be handled either through Scrum framework. Some people follow, some teams will follow, and some people follow Kanban. Of course, I'll tell you the difference between what Scrum and Kanban after some time. So knowledge over Scrum framework, followed by the kind of Scrum ceremony is what we have. At the same time, artifacts, followed not only Scrum, even of course, knowledge over Kanban. So this knowledge is required. So on a basic front, I'm talking about to start with. At the same time, being a Scrum Master, you need to have an exposure experience in understanding the team dynamics in Agile. So for that, the very first thing is that you need to understand the Agile mindset, how it has to be framed. Because it's not all, it is nothing to do with technology, it is nothing to do with experience what an individual has carried. End of the day, as long as if they're imparting this in the Agile mindset, then only that Agile related teams will be succeeded in long run. So whenever we're trying to understand the team dynamics in the field of Agile, it is always better to understand about the Agile mindset, which is essentially required, which we have to make and which we have to impart over the teams. This is something essentially needed. Followed by that, we need to have some facilitation skills required. So whatever the team facilitation skills are required. At the same time, decision making, because there will be some situations we come across where we have to take some decisions with immediate effect without this wasting of time, all that. So imparting some decision making and conflict management skills, all these things are essentially required for any Scrum Master, right? So facilitation skills, decision making, followed by conflict resolution skill sets. So all these things are required for a Scrum Master because we are the one who is managing the teams as well as their work performances, all that. This is required. Next is about Scrum ceremonies are required because as I mentioned you in the beginning, Scrum ceremony is something like sprint planning, all that. Because whenever a product owner has created a product user stories and all everything in the field of by creating a roadmap and all everything. So whatever the issues we have seen in the product backlog, from there usually sprint planning starts. So usually sprint planning is the one which will be initiated by the product owner. So based on the product owner initiation, whatever the effort will be taken to complete that particular task will be decided by the team itself. And if there is any difficulties finding by the team, that will be taken care of by the Scrum Master. So understanding our sprint planning is required. At the same time, daily Scrum, because regular Scrum meetings will be conducted by the Scrum Master, so that what is that we have discussed and what we did yesterday, today, followed by the kind of work to be done for today itself and all. So this daily Scrum meetings has to be conducted with the team, so that experience and exposure is required for a Scrum Master. At the same time, sprint review and retrospection, because sprint review is the one which normally explains us about the progress of work, what we are performing in during the sprint development. Retrospection, once the sprint is done, what is that we have done so far, how best we can do for the next sprint, what quality deliverables we can provide for the next sprint. All these things comes under retrospection part. So Scrum ceremonies, knowing about Scrum ceremonies, practically speaking, is required. So sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, retrospection. So these sort of knowledge is also required for any Scrum Master to understand. At the same time, we have to make sure that ensure team should follow three different things. One is about definition of ready, followed by definition of done and acceptance criteria. So definition of ready is nothing but what is that we are going to start. So we have to make sure before we are getting to start the work. So whether everything is fall on place or not. So this is what generally we call it as definition of ready. When we talk about definition of done, there is some parameters for us to develop some work which is being assigned. So that there is some parameter that which we have to reach upon. So then only that work will be considered as complete. So this is what generally we call it as definition of done stands for. I'm making it simple, okay, so that you guys can understand better. Followed by this acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria, which explains us about how that particular issue has to be addressed and how that particular issue must be completed, right? So this is what generally an acceptance criteria, which provides a guidelines to the development team as well as testing team that how this can be developed, right? This is what acceptance criteria stands for. So followed by this, next is capacity planning as well as velocity, because capacity planning usually we do whenever the sprint planning we start. So what capacity team has, right? So all these things comes under capacity planning, right? So how much team size we have, right? So what is that they did so far? All these things comes under capacity planning. This is also required for any Scrum Master to know it, because based upon the sprint duration we have, how much team size we have, right? So how many hours of, how many days of work these people can perform. Followed by that, how many hours of time they can work. So based on that, usually capacity planning will do. At the same time, velocity based on the previous work, what they have completed. So how much more time and how much more sprints are required for us and how many more story points these people can be addressed in the next coming sprints in order to reach the release successfully. This is all comes under the velocity part. So that has to be known as well as experienced by the Scrum Master equally. So these are the basic skill sets. Of course, these are the skill sets. Again, you may come across an intermediate and advanced level, but basic skill sets on a high level one if you see Scrum Master, if you want to become a Scrum Master, when you're trying to apply in opportunities for job opportunities and all, when you are preparing your resume and all, these are the basic skill sets are required. Apart from that, there are tools, of course, we are using because some organizations use this Jira Align. At the same time, if they want to raise some tickets and all that, Jira with ServiceNow integrations will be done by them. Otherwise, some people will go for Jira with Jira service management. At the same time, Confluence will be used by the people to document collaboration and all. They may use Confluence. If they're working on DevOps environment, they may require some CI/CD tools, something like Jenkins, Kubernetes, Ansible, Negois, all that stuff. So all these are the different tools. Depends on the kind of project they were working on. Depends on the kind of environment they were in. These are the tools are required. At the same time, apart from Jira, there is another tool called Azure DevOps. Person who are working on the DevOps environment must be experienced on Azure DevOps environment. Some organizations uses Azure DevOps. Some organizations may use Rally. At the same time, as I told you in the beginning, some Kanban development model at the same time understanding over Kanban development of application development apart from Scrum is also required. So these are the tools. Of course, Kanban is not a tool anymore. Kanban is a development process, but to have a better understanding, I have written it. So tools like Jira, Jira Align, Confluence, so service management, Jira with ServiceNow, Azure DevOps, Rally. These are the different tools which are required for any Scrum Master to excel with. These are the basic skill sets. And the same tools will also be carried even for intermediate and advanced level. Okay, that's a different thing. The second is intermediary skill sets, right? So intermediary skill set means one being a Scrum Master, apart from the basic ones, you need to have a self-organizing ability to manage your teams. At the same time, cross-functional teams, managing how you are managing your cross-functional teams. That experience you need to have. At the same time, we have to measure the sprint and agile metrics towards improving the sprint over the sprints because multiple sprints will be developed by us. So we need to understand the sprints and as well as agile metrics by measuring the progress of the work, all that stuff. At the same time, we need to understand the health of the sprint, all that. Followed by this, we need to coordinate the sprints, sprint retrospectives, at the same time, daily stand-up meetings, all that, which is all I discussed in the beginning, which is called agile scrum ceremonies, all that. At the same time, being a scrum master, we must ensure we have to work with product owner. Whatever the kind of product backlog items was taken, at the same time, whatever the new requests given by the product owner, and how to merge with the existing work, or we need to transfer to the next sprint. Because product owner always try to see from the goal and vision what is that they wants to achieve of the product. But Scrum Masters and all everything will see from the team level perspective, right? How team is performing, right? So what capacity and capability this team has. So that sort of things is what generally teams will see. This is what generally we need to understand. At the same time, removing impediments in Scrum is also required by being a Scrum Master because there are possibilities sometimes whatever the duration taken by the team to complete that particular sprint may be failed sometimes. So there are a lot of impediments in Scrum because team may not understand the product goal properly or a sprint goal properly. They may not have technical expertise. They may not have proper understanding ability among the team people, right? So they may be lazy sometimes, because I'm not generalizing this to anyone. Sometimes they may not have technical capabilities, right? There are different impediments which team will faces, like removing impediments by understanding what team understanding levels are assessing all that, and removing impediments is also being a scrum master we have to be good with. At the same time, we should have to make sure about product shaping and as well as scope management because end of the day we have to meet the scope. Unless until if you are not defining the scope and meeting the scope, then there will be no value for the work what we are doing. So scope management is also end of the day required. Apart from that, knowing about not only the health of the project, at the same time, product backlog health is also required because whatever the product backlog items we have taken, for a period of time, few more items will come in add into the existing repository. So backlog health, knowing about the backlog health and what is the health of the product backlog. is also required. Not only health of the sprint, product backlog health should also be identified by a Scrum Master. This is required. Of course, there are some metrics to be followed to do that. That is needed. There are some calculations needed. At the same time, dependency management, this is also needed for a Scrum Master because we need to have an effective and as well as releases has to be managed by us. So for the dependency management is also equally required. Followed by this PI and sprint planning, product increment as well as sprint planning, which must accomplish with the kind of sprints goals and as well as product increments. What is that we need to uh, address or reach in coming days, followed by understanding our agile maturity. At the same time, educating the teams, leading the teams, coaching the teams. All these things are essentially required. This is what the intermediate skill sets, which being a Scrum Master, you must be good with. The third thing is about advanced skill sets. Advanced skill sets, more or whatever additional things apart from agile environment, because nowadays, whatever the application development we do, everything is falls under DevOps environment, where both development and operations teams are working hand in hand. So facilitating the teams to drive towards the release path, wherein by implementing this DevOps environment, so that whatever the corrections we want to make in the existing one, if there is anything of that sort, can be addressed by the team fast and effective. So this is what general DevOps environment, which can be integrated with Agile so that requirements can be addressed very fast and effective. So that skill set is required for a Scrum Master. At the same time, Agile engineering practices, something like behavioral driven development, because these are all different engineering practices. Behavior of the work, what we have taken, this BDDs and all everything come into picture. At the same time, test driven development based upon the test driven practices and all. So how this implementation has to be taken care of, like BDD, behavioral driven development, test driven development, MDD stands for model driven development. FDD stands for feature driven development. These are all engineering practices, which being a Scrum Master in an advanced level, you need to have, because all these things, something falls under XP. Because if you see Agile as an umbrella, we have different things like Scrum framework, some people uses, some people follow Kanban models, and some people follow XP practices. XP means extreme programming, I can say. Whatever the engineering practices of Agile I was mentioned here, Agile engineering practices like BDD, TDD, all these comes under XP. Because whenever we are integrating and imparting this XP practices to the Agile environment, this behavioral driven development, test driven development, everything comes into picture. Followed by ATDD, continuous integration of DevOps environment. So this knowledge is required. An important point is about scaled Agile, because earlier there was only one team which is to be managed with. Because nowadays, multiple teams we have to manage, multiple units you have to manage in the business. Sometimes enterprise level transformation, where you have to transform the organization to the enterprise environment by understanding their business agility. This is where and how generally the scaled Agile framework is essentially required. So there are some values and principles of scaled Agile framework which has to be adopted by the Scrum Masters. Even scaled Agile knowledge is also becoming essentially important, because earlier it was lined up only with one or two teams. Now multiple teams we are working, multiple coordination among the teams by implementing and imparting the value systems and principles are becoming mandatory. And slowly organizations are also transforming towards a scale Agile way of approach. So for that, imparting scaled Agile and how scale Agile has to be implemented to reach the business agility of the organization depends on the volatility of the market, because market is volatile sometimes. So according to the volatility, whatever the business goals and as well as the rules they have defined, their organization has to reach. So for that, reaching the business agility, so for that they have to change their organization to the scaled Agile framework. So this knowledge is also required. Of course, scaled Agile training practices based on the experience I am giving, so that I am discussing about all this. So this is also because nowadays I made this in my curriculum, because understanding about scaled Agile framework and all, so that it is more easy for, at the same time important for people who are working as a Scrum Masters or who are about to do. Of course, that's a different story, right? So end of the day, scaled Agile practices knowledge is required. At the same time, knowing about the agile maturity followed by coaching experience, like if you, because these scrum masters, whoever have experience can become agile coaches in future, depends on their interest on that, based on the opportunities what they receive, So this is also required. The next, impediment management, right? So how are you managing your impediments? How tactfully you are identifying the dependencies and blockers, how to address that. So this impediment management is also required. At the same time, anti-agile patterns through kind of metrics, what is that we are following and coaching the teams accordingly. Apart from that, as I mentioned in the beginning, right, so we need to understand the techniques towards the focus of understanding the user stories, like continuous integration, deployment, development, by understanding ATDD and test-driven development. At the same time, pair programming, because this is all something comes under XP part. At the same time, to have more effectiveness to the team, uh, some agile games, like playing some agile games so that people will have some motivation over how to address the teams and all. Because practical way of approach imparting among the teams are essentially required, and that is required as well, because this is not something theory to explain. Some kind of case level scenarios which normally explains will give a better understanding over the people who is working on it. Because if you are playing some games, or if you're making them to work on some assignments and all everything, this is how they will build their mindset towards agile. Because that's what I said in the beginning of my session. In this video I told you it's not about the technology what an individual has. As long as if you are imparting the agile mindset towards yourself, and as well as you are imparting among the teams, that itself will give you success. But of course, that's it. It's not a practice of in a one day it happens. This is a practice which we have to be continued over a period of time. It's a continuous practice, right? Because any organization or any team, if you want to make it more effective, it's a continuous journey, right? So it is not a one day job to perform. So these are the skill sets which is required. So apart from that, whatever the certifications an individual is performing and doing, of course that is required. But certification will give you an entry gate for you to enter with. But end of the day, knowledge over practicalities of Scrum Master is also essentially required, because this is end of the day, this is our career, and this is the career where we are depending, and we are deciding, and we are applying for opportunities for our well-being in future professionally. So it's certifications are important. I'm not I'm not saying no for that. Certifications are essentially needed. But apart from certification, knowledge over practicality of Scrum Masters, especially from the people who are coming from non-IT, is essentially required. So by keeping all these in mind, this is the reason why, that's the reason why I have made this video. So this is all about this video. I hope you like this video, because based on my experience, and as well as my observation, as well as my consulting and coaching experience, in this video and as well as this presentation, the skill sets and all everything was paid by me. I hope you understand. I think this video will helpful to you in excel your career, and I'm hoping so. Uh, if you have any questions, or if you have any queries or so something of that sort, please uh, reach out to the contact details which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.